So today he's gonna uncover what he calls Project Overkill so he can get back to work on it. Even though it was tarped, it's extremely dusty. Yeah.
Look, even with that tarp on, look how dusty it is.
That's what I was just saying. Even though it's tarped, it's crazy.
Alright, so we got it uncovered, and so many people over the years, yes, this has been covered for years. We started this thing over 3 years ago. And what had happened was, we were working on it, I moved it to this bay so we could continue. Something happened, we needed to work on something else, and I just didn't get back to it. And mostly because as it sat here, we started piling stuff on it to use it as a workbench. And then we had to paint something, so we covered it with a tarp, which I guess helped keep the overspray off, but the dirt apparently went through. Or we covered it when it was already dirty, I don't recall. But anyways, it's an 09 F750 Ford. It's got a 240 horse Cummins 6.7. It's got a manual 6-speed transmission. The gross vehicle weight is 33,000 pounds. The rear end ratio is a 390, and it's got 323,000 miles. Now typically, I don't buy trucks north of about 280 because they're just more difficult to sell. The value drops significantly once you get near 300. On a medium duty like this, I'm talking, not road tractors. Road tractors, that's still a low mileage truck, but you know, this is not a wet line motor. This is just a traditional, you know, cast and bored cylinder. You can't replace the cylinder sleeves in these. But I was building this truck to be our ultimate tow, versatile, do everything truck. I wanted to be able to use this truck to pick up any trailer we bought, whether it be a fifth wheel, a gooseneck, 2 5/16 ball, a pintle hook, electric brakes, air brakes, didn't matter. I wanted to be able to hook up anything. And so we were kind of moving towards that. And I wanted also to, by utilizing a fifth wheel, I wanted to build something else in the back of it. But I wanted to make this to where we could travel a distance. That's why I chose this truck. Well, I chose it for several reasons. One was, you know, you can't beat a little Cummins, these things run forever. Another is, it's a Super Duty cab. And I have lots of Super Duty parts. And this is a pretty basic manual locks, manual windows. You know, what it's really got is engine brake, it's got cruise control, got good air conditioner, and it's got a driver's side air ride seat. I have more air ride bases that I could put in here, so we could have double air ride seats in here, even though in this particular truck there's not enough ceiling height really to utilize a really nice air ride seat. So I don't know what we'll do there, but I chose this truck. You see we're doing some interior work, we're replacing a bezel, I got a turn signal out of it. You know, I got some more work to do to make it what we need.
And it hasn't been cleaned.
And what?
It hasn't been cleaned. It's very dirty.
Yeah, it hasn't been cleaned since day one. You see the backup camera up top, up on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So, the problem with this cab for us was when I was building it, one of the things I stalled on was when you're going to travel, and just like a day like today where it's raining, if you want to take raincoats with you, or you want to take some food with you, or cooler, or some gear, there's not enough room in here. And where I left off with this truck was I couldn't decide what I was going to do back here. I was contemplating taking the windshield out, cutting the A-pillars, and then taking the seam apart on the floor that Ford puts them together and putting on a crew cab to give us some more room, because I have a crew cab that has damage to the front structure. You can't use a regular F550 and smaller crew cab on this because the firewalls are different and the floor hump of the transmission is quite a bit different. So I have to put the two together to do it. And then I thought, if I was going to do all that work, and then it's still just a crew cab, and I'm not really excited about a crew cab, I would actually prefer to have a sleeper. So you see this blue tape mark here, that's 36 inches. That's where the crew cab would have came, and I thought, if I'm going to put a sleeper on, 36 inches just pretty small for this. And it just kind of snowballs from there. I had Freightliner fuel tanks underneath, aluminum fuel tanks, but I wanted to drop the front of this a little bit, and those tanks were 28 inch and they were already like 8 inches off the ground, 8 or 9 inches. It wasn't much, and I was going to be going down to about 6 or 7 inches, and I just wasn't comfortable with it, so I took those off. So I'm looking for either 18 or 22, somewhere between 18 and 22 inch diameter tanks. I don't care if they're 30, I think that's 36 here, or if they're 60s. It could be longer, I don't have a problem with that. But I'm looking for those, and I don't know what we're gonna do here. We did a lot of work to this truck. There's a whole entire playlist on this truck from the very beginning, and when I bought it. I bought it from this company, and it was a 24-foot box truck. And there was, let me think, there was 12 feet of frame on the back of this, and this axle was set at 186 cab to axle. So the back of that cab to the center of that, the original axle, that's not original, was 186 inches. I came up here, well, back up. That axle, something happened and it caught on fire. And when it did, the wood floor in the box caught on fire. So the box was no good, and the axle, it still rolled, the pinion was still good, but every seal was burnt out of it. So we took that axle out, cut the frame at 14 feet, because that was, I came up from the back of the cab at 14 feet, that's where we had good paint on the frame, where it was solid, I knew it hadn't been touched. And at that point, I decided, all right, we're gonna go 12'4" cab to axle, and that way we get 120 inches from here to the back of the cab, so it makes it easy for my application. So it originally had spring suspension, and we swapped it over to, this is a Freightliner airliner setup, and I put a Meritor 390 ratio rear end in it. We went through all the brakes, new brake chambers, I've got new hoses, I've got shoes, drums, bearings, seals, shocks. I didn't do the airbags. I think they were good, they were pretty new. So we've done a lot of work there. We cleaned the frame up and painted it, and then I built the big hitch on the back, which again, all of this is in a playlist, you can check it out. My intention was, like I said, I want to be able to tow everything, but my next step on the build was to get it running and driving. Oh yeah, I changed out all the studs too, so we could put aluminum wheels all the way around, and I have the aluminum wheels for it. So I wanted to put a fifth wheel, like a regular semi fifth wheel on it. I wanted it to be a slider, because with this axle back as far as it is, there's not a lot of frame back here. So we could slide that fifth wheel forward. If it was a trailer intended for a tandem axle, then the kingpin setting, how far the kingpin is back from the front of the trailer, and how far the kingpin is from a drop in the trailer and clearance, we could really move that thing forward and take advantage of that 12,000 pound front axle, because it's just a Cummins 6.7, it's just a 6-speed transmission, so they're fairly light. There's not a lot of weight on that steer, so I wanted to take full advantage of that. I also wanted to make my own version of a DTU, a detachable tow unit. I don't need an underreach the majority of the time. All I need is like the Holmes 750 tow bar, and I have one similar. What I'd like to have is I'd like to build a unit that would have that tow bar, and the tow bar, you know, it comes out this far here. I want that tow bar to hook to a platform that I could literally put on top of this truck, have a receiver tube on either side of the frame here, snap into the fifth wheel with its own kingpin, and then have two places up in the front that it slides into, where I only have to take some ratchet binders on the corners and just ratchet it down just from vibrations and small movements, and then have that unit completely self-contained so that we can take it on and off pretty easily, and that's where that sliding fifth wheel would come into play. We could snap it into the kingpin on this, then once it's in place, then we could slide it forward the rest of the way into the receivers, put our pins in, and do the ratchet binders. And then that would make it to where we could tow everything we wanted, but still keeping as much weight forward on the axle as possible. The problem is, since I started this truck 3 years ago, or over 3 years ago, I bought several rollbacks. I bought a big wrecker. I have 2 other wreckers. I'm planning on another wrecker build. I just don't know if I need this truck, and I just don't know where to go with it. The problem is, I've done so much work to it that if I sold it the way it is, I would not realize any of my work in value, because the average person's not going to pay for what I've done, and the value just isn't there. When we did this suspension, I knew I wanted to go do some heavy hauling. So if you see that cross member, that's the center cross member from a Freightliner airliner suspension between the 2 tandems. You can see how many bolts are in there. It's just a massive cross member. I chose to use that one because I knew I wanted as much support this way as we could get, and I knew I was going to put a fifth wheel on, and the fifth wheel will literally line up with these holes down through here. So if we move forward, that's what we're going to do. But I'm kind of struggling on this right now because I don't know where to go with this build. You can see we've started to clean the stuff out around it so we get back to it. So we've got the 305 engine here, the LS engine. There's the parts for the 305, there's the parts for the LS. So I need to get those 2 things built and get them done. And by the time that's done, I have to have a decision on this because I need this real estate. This cannot stay here. I need this bay because every other project I need to get cleaned up. We need some space to work on. I've been trying to work out of one bay for far too long, and there's just too much crap laying around. So we're gonna try and get this done, but I gotta come up with a decision. So I don't know if we're gonna add a sleeper to the back. If we do, I've got a 60-inch sleeper that still leaves ample room back here to do what we need to do. I may just put the fifth wheel on it, the gooseneck hitch. That's another thing. I don't like a flip over ball gooseneck when hauling heavy. If you're hauling a 14,000 pound or something like that, I'm okay with it. I don't mind a flip over ball. But if I'm hauling, 25,000, which is what both of my goosenecks are rated at, 25,000 above, which I'll use a 30,000 pound ball, I want it permanently mounted on the truck. I don't want to flip over. But I thought if I put the fifth wheel on it and put the gooseneck on it, get the fenders on, get some light brackets back here, some mud flaps, just put a regular battery box in here underneath this side, put a factory battery box here, and put another fuel tank on the other side. Actually, I'd like to put 2 fuel tanks, one on either side, and move the battery box back. I just hate to do that because if I move that battery box back, whatever the upfit would be, that could be in the way. That's why having a battery box here is probably best. So there's some things I cannot do with this truck because it just won't make sense. One thing is I cannot make it an all-out wrecker with a wrecker bed because I would have to cut off my hitch back here, and I didn't do all that work just to cut it off. So making it a full-out wrecker is not an option. It's too short for a rollback. Again, we're only 10 foot right here, and I wouldn't be able to use my hitch either. I will not put a dually pickup truck bed on this. I think the only people that like those trucks are people who don't actually use those trucks, because when you're talking about a dually bed, at the top of the bed is right here. This is, you're 5 foot something. It's over your head.
1 or 2.
Yeah, this is over her head at 5 foot 1 or 2. And then in order to make the body lines match, you got to raise that thing up. I think it's 7, 8 inches. So the floor of the bed is 7 or 8 inches, which is probably, the bed of the floor is probably right in this area right here. It's, and that's with no air in the rear suspension. So if the suspension was aired up, it would come up a few more inches. So it'd be pointless. The back of the bed's to get anything in the bed's gonna be up at chest height, and that's just the absolute definition of useless to me. So anyways, this truck is coming back. We're gonna get it finished. I just don't know where we're gonna go with it. I have all the air brakes run to the back. I just need to terminate them. We're also gonna put air brakes T up here, so we can run a van trailer and run hoses to that as well. But I believe I'm gonna tuck them down in the frame under a door, so when we need them, we can pull them out, but otherwise they're not in the way. Something like that. But I don't know where we're gonna go. I thought this would be excellent truck for versatility, and then buy a lowboy trailer that we could move our grade off from property to property. That was one of the biggest things about this truck, was being able to move the grade off. Because I use my big rollback to move it, but you know, it's far too expensive of a truck, too much money invested for me to have that truck around for as little as I use it. The convenience is nice, the insurance isn't, the plates aren't, the cost of the truck isn't, but this could be a better alternative. This could be a truck and a trailer if I found a lowboy, and it could do a lot. It's not going to do what the rollback can do, but the rollback, I'm always fighting height. That's why I need a lowboy trailer. And I don't really need a tandem axle to move my grade all. You know, the grade all weighs 24,000 pounds. A trailer sizable enough to move that's probably going to make the grade all and the trailer probably, I'd say, 40. So we're going to be under 52 with all of that, I would imagine. This truck's not going to be very heavy based on how it's set up right now. So anyways, I got to figure out what to do with it. If you got any ideas, I'm not going to do a dump and flatbed. I'm not going to do a dump bed because a 12-foot dump bed on this truck just doesn't seem like a very good sell. Unless I came across a 12-foot dump bed reasonable. If I found a nice 12-foot dump bed with lower sides, I might do that. And then throw a couple toolboxes on either side. That I might do. That'd make a nice dump truck, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to move this axle. I'm not moving this axle. It's where it's at, that's where it's going to stay. So, leave in the comments what you would do with this truck. I got to make a decision by the time this stuff is all cleaned up around it, which this will be going on as soon as it dries out, which it really feels pretty dry today. I don't have one of the moisture content things. I still feel a little dampness in there. But yeah, by the time we get this all cleaned up, we gotta have a plan because it's gotta go. Leave in the comments, guys, what would you do with this? And we're gonna do a project update on all the different trucks and things we got going on. So I get people asking a lot in the comments, where is this, what's that, what are we doing with this, do you still have that? And we're gonna address the most asked about projects. So anyways, leave in the comments what you do. Catch you on the next one.